never drove any faster than 35. That's about the speed that every car was going in them days, because in those days cars were only going real slow besides today. And it was a steep climb, so we had to have the truck down in super low a lot to get up them mountains with all that weight. And Pop had the only brake on our trailer. It was a hand brake. He had a lever that he pulled with his hands, and that would stop the trailer. You could just see down in there really good. There wasn't nothing under us. We was out past the road. So it was a kind of a scary trip too. I was only 14 when we traveled them 7 states, and I can't remember the names of many towns we entertained. I do remember on our way to play the state fair in Filer, Idaho, we drove all day up to the Rocky Mountainside, and the old truck just putted right along. And when we got to the top, Pop said we'll stay overnight. There was a filling station and cabins up there. Well, the man came out that was in charge and advised us that the air is too light up here for a lot of people to breathe. And he said there was a campground right at the bottom, and it wasn't so far to it. So we started down. And as we traveled up that day, it was so dry. Everything was just burned up. And all of a sudden we noticed this tree growing right out of the rock. And it was green. It looked like a nice healthy tree. And see all the rocks around it. But my brother and I built Cliff and me and Mary, we traveled that same route later when we went up to Montana, and this tree is still there between the interstates. I think it's in Wyoming. I believe that's where it's at. But it looks so unusual to see a tree growing right out of a rock. So we started down. We never realized what we were getting into, because it was kind of clear and okay up on the top there. Just could see the fog around the top of the mountains in front of us, and it was a pretty steep bank. As we went down, it got steep, and the steeper it got, the crookeder the road got. It was just one curve right after another. The truck picked up speed, and Pop pulled on his brake lever and kept the trailer from jackknifing. We was down in 1 hour. Even though it took us all day to get up, we got down in 1 hour. And there was Bill Cody's campground on our right. So we whipped right in there, so happy to be down and safe. So we noticed that there was cabins, and there's a filling station there and stuff, of course. And we thought it was a place that we could park our rig. So we was ready for supper and a good night's sleep, of course. Mom and us girls had a lot of work to catch up. I really don't remember how we kept enough clothes washed and dried. Luella reminded me yesterday when I talked to her on the phone that we only had one wash tub, and that Mom put her clothes in a lot of other smaller containers to rinse them and things. And drying them was kind of a problem too. We had ropes that we put up to put the clothes on, and we was going to go so much that we didn't have a lot of time to dry clothes. That night we just got camped and got our supper over with and got in bed and asleep. And us girls had to go to the restroom on the back of the filling station. We just got there and back when bang, bang, bang. Yes, sir, there was 2 real cowboys with real guns, all drunk as could be, shooting it out. No one was hurt, but we were all pretty scared. I think it was just a few miles from Idaho. So the next day, as we drove towards Fowler, Idaho, the country was still dry, but some potato fields were being irrigated from the mountain streams. This was just some of the scenery as we traveled along. You can see the mountains up there on the right, and the valleys were green, you see, and the cows could eat down there, and it was just one of the pretty sceneries as we drove along towards Idaho. But with the irrigation that they done in Idaho, when you got into a town, it was pretty. They had flowers and different things. It don't show so much of that in this picture, but it does show the pretty mountains up behind, and this town was just setting in just a little valley down between the mountains in the edge of Idaho. But before we could go into Idaho, we seen some of the irrigation ditches coming down from the mountain streams, and we'd never seen that before. And it seems like a neat idea. So when we got down, just ready to go into Idaho, we seen where everybody had to stop and be inspected. They didn't want nobody bringing anything into Idaho to sell or come into Idaho to haul anything out. So we stopped, and Bill Norris says, "Charlie, you better hide all them costumes. They sure won't let you in if they know you're a show going in to play for the fair." So Pop told us a little before that, and Mom had hid all the costumes. Pop got out, and of course all of us kids and Mom got out of the back door, and we were all barefooted and in old clothes. We went to the restroom, and the man said, "What do you got there?" And Pop said, "It's a house on wheels." So the guy went out there and walked around it and looked it over, and Pop says, "We're just traveling and enjoying the scenery." He said, "Well, that sounds like fun, so go ahead and have a good time." They didn't even look in the house car. We were almost to our destination anyway, in Idaho by that time. And we went, and we were all ready to get the Idaho job over with and go home. So that's what we were preparing to do. We hadn't played for the fair yet here. We were just on our way in. But I told about the fair on the other tape, what I can remember about it, so we'll go on from here. So we only had the one fair to play for in Idaho, so then we was ready to go home. Pop decided to go visit his cousin Maggie. She lived in Colorado. This is some of the scenery that we've seen on the way from up in Idaho back through Wyoming and then down into Colorado. But of course, I don't remember that the snow was on the mountains, but it could have been. I might not have noticed. But she lived in Colorado and had the sugar beet farm. We went back to Cheyenne and went straight south down into Colorado. Maggie and her husband had a big farm, and I thought it was wonderful. They had a water tower that they kept full of water with a gas engine pump. Then it was piped to the house and barn and other buildings. We had running water for baths and so forth. We stayed there about 5 days and then on back home. But as we was down into Colorado and we started on home, we still had 2 days to travel to get home. And it was getting to be fall, and with the dry weather and everything, the trees were beginning to get pretty with color, and we traveled up to our home by Independence. And we were glad to get there. The house really looked good to us all because we'd been gone quite a while. And we got out. Shockmans were there, and Frank was there. And after we visited a while, we found out that the drought had just ruined things on the farm, that there was no income there. Frank didn't hardly make enough to live on while we were gone. And so Pop and him settled up, and he went and found him a job somewhere else. His folks was camping out into the pasture, in our pasture. And we put our camper out around behind the house. We had it sitting back in there. And of course, Royal, he went down to spend some time with Uncle TF and Aunt Doris, because he was down there a lot. He had some friends down there. But we planned to go back out on the road the next spring. So we still practiced our act. It was a long winter, and it was a lot of snow that winter. It was a hard winter. And I took care of Mom's chickens and helped Bill and Leo cut wood. Pop bought an acre of woods, and we had 3 stoves and Trockman's trailer stove, two, because they were camping in the pasture. They got milk, eggs, and wood from us. Pop and John Trockman had a few words once or twice. But we chopped a lot of wood that winter, and it was kind of fun. It was a lot more fun letting the trees fall down than it was trimming them up and piling it up so we could saw it up. Royal found a saw somewhere with a motor on it, and he'd come up and we'd saw it into littler pieces then. And if John Trockman thought that Pop might be upset with him or something, he'd come up to the front door and he'd open the door up a little crack and he'd throw his hat in, and when if nothing happened, if Pop didn't throw it back out, which he never did, pretty soon he'd open the door way up and he'd jump in on that hat and dance a jig and stomp on the thing and laugh. And when no one threw it back, he thought it could stay. Then they'd visit all evening. talked about the Bible a lot because John went out in Christian service most every day. Her and him were both full-time pioneers. As we spent our time through the winter, us kids did different things, and of course we remembered how we were growing. This picture of Royal and Leona, they grew a lot since it was taken. I don't know how old they were there, but they were cute. And of course, Mom had us kids all embroidering to keep us still at nights when Papa's trying to sleep. She'd give us a quilt block with a picture on it and had us embroider them. And then one day we caught Luella sitting up on the fence, and we'll see if we can find that picture. Yes, sir, there she is, sitting up on that homemade gate up on top of the hill up behind the house. I suppose I wanted her to pose for a picture, though that's where she went to. Us older kids, during that winter, we had quite a time putting in our time outside of doing our dances and practicing for our next year. But we did have a couple, 3 places that we played through the winter. And while us girls was trying to sew and do this and that to put in our time, the boys went hunting. Of course, Bill, he just got this gun, I guess, so he was kind of posing with it because he was happy to have it. I don't really know what kind of a gun that is. I think it's a rifle. But anyway, he was growing every day too, because we all grew, even when we was out on the road. And this is a cute picture of Cliff and Charlotte when they were little. They're down to Grandma's. I suppose that's Mom sitting back there on the porch behind them, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's a cute picture of them, and so we just thought we'd put that in here so we can see it. And even though Frank had found him a job somewhere else, he came down at least every 2 weeks to see Leona because they were sweet on each other before we even went out on the road. So he was down there this time, and I decided to take pictures of all the boys. So you start at the right-hand side, that's Stan, and then Leo, and then Bill, and then Frank, and then there's Cliff there in front of Pop. Pop's standing up there. And that's Royal peeking out between Frank's legs there. He always had to do something special. And he didn't spend a lot of time at home either. He was down to Warner's quite a little bit because by that time he'd met Marie and they were a little bit sweet on each other, or not, whatever. But he was home this time, and he was just getting old enough that he didn't stay at home too much. I remember one time he was home for a day or two, and he's asking us kids how he's coming with our wood chopping. And we told him, oh, we're doing pretty good, but we've got a great big tree in the middle of that timber. We don't know for sure how we're going to get it cut down. He says, I'll come cut it down for you. So he gets his axe and we all go down to the timber, and there's a great big old tree. We thought sure if he chopped it down he'd help trim it up too. But he comes down there and he gets his axe all ready, and we used a saw too. We'd chip it in from one side and then took 2 to run the saw. And so he says, you time it now, I bet I can cut that thing down in 15 minutes. And so away he went. He chopped and chopped and chopped, and he got Bill on the other end of the saw, and sure enough, he got it chopped down just no time, and it fell down, and there it was, a great big old tree laying on its side, and he puts his axe up over his shoulder, and he says, well, there you are. Now all you got to do is trim it up and get it piled up, and he went home. But he was always doing something. Royal was real good to all of us. He's for an older brother. peeve and had to take all us 3 girls with him every time he had a date. He had to take us along too. So we all got to go skating and things because of him. So, and we talked about the Masons before and showed a picture of their house and mentioned that we played music in that house. Well, as we had this orchestra and band, we had a 2-wheel trailer that Pop put a sign on it, Katie's Orchestra, up on the top of it, and it was a covered trailer, and it had a padlock on the back, so you could, it was kind of like in a piano you could pull it out and then it would open up. There was a piano hinge on it. And he had a padlock on there to hold it so nobody could get in. And I remember that lots of times we'd take that trailer in our big old Buick and pack ourselves in, and Mom would fix the lunch, and we'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We lived up there by Independence, and we'd get up at 6 o'clock, and boy, Pop would be waiting for us to all get ready, and we had to be dressed up and really looking good, and we'd get in the car and we'd drive down part way, then we'd stop and have breakfast. Mom had that packed. Then we'd drive on down, and all the Masons would know that we was coming, so all of them that could would be there. Now, I can't begin to name the ones you can see here on this picture, but that's after, well, some of them kids in the front there is my age probably, and it was a picture of the whole family, and we would play music and they would just get a big kick out of it. Of course, us kids would play hide and go seek, and Ellsworth, Wiley, and that one Mason boy, they always helped me hide. So we just had a lot of fun with these Masons. I got another picture of them here that we'll show you. This is the pictures of Pop's cousins, the older ones of the bunch. I can't name them. I can't look at them and tell you which one's which. The one standing in the front with his arms folded is Bill, and that's Luella, kind of in the middle there, and out on the end here is the youngest one, Clara, and I just can't name the rest of them. Them boys all looked alike to me at that point. Anyway, this is how many got here for this reunion. You can see people back on the porch, so it's the same part of that same picture that we had in of the whole group, only we just got the brothers and sisters out and got the picture by themselves. When we showed you their picture of their house before, I tried to tell you how pretty it was inside. Well, this is just right inside of the front door there, and this is a dining room, and we was all done with our dinner evidently because the table's cleaned off, but that's that cupboard that they could open from either side, and if you go down through that door behind the man there, they had a pretty good sized kitchen back there where I helped Uncle Fred drink his coffee, and then right on the right side of that door, that's Mom sitting there talking to one of the Mason women, and the door you can see that is open there behind her. I think that is going into the living room on that side. I'm sure the living room's over there, but they had an extra door that went upstairs there too, so I don't know which door that is. But anyway, the living room was all decorated up with wooden furniture and wooden work and all that. It was a beautiful house inside. I just thought I might just show you how pretty it really was. Now I told you how Mom got us kids to sew and embroidery to keep us still because Papa's trying to rest. But this is a quilt. These are the quilt blocks that we embroidered. Royal embroidered some, Leona embroidered some, Llewellyn embroidered some, I embroidered some, and I'm not sure, but well, maybe Bill embroidered some of them. But anyway, we all had our own blocks, and we done the best we could embroidering them, and we had them around. Mom had them around all her life, I guess, in a box. And after she was gone, I gave what I could find to Leona, and she had some of them already that Mom would give her before or something. Anyway, Leona took it and made it into a quilt. And 2 years ago, she brought it up to our Cady reunion in Troy Mills to show us that we had enough blocks for a whole quilt. You see, they're all nursery rhymes, and they ain't too bad for young kids to embroider them. I thought we done pretty good. Them 3 bins in the tub. There they go. They're kind of fun to look at. We put them up on the wall up there where we have our reunions, and we took pictures of them. I took a couple and put together. Rose is doing good showing you the quilt and what it really looked like. The different blocks. It's really, she's got a better picture there than it was to start with. It was kind of a dim one. So now you know that even when we were young, we were working on quilts, and Mom was being sure that we were doing something useful. Now, we showed you a picture of this tree before, that Cliff and I took a picture of it, and that was in '86. But we just run across this postcard, and it says, "A lone tree." We took the picture in '86, and it was 76 years old in this year of 36 or before. So that would make it 106 years old. And it was still there in the same rock with a few other stones around it. And it's fenced in here. And it was also fenced in when we seen it, and it had a sign up on it, if you remember, in the other picture. So that's pretty nice. We were sure glad to see that. Mom got a lot of interest out of seeing that because she didn't think it was possible. Well, the winter is going by slowly, and now we're almost ready for New Year's. It's 1936. Almost ready to be 1937. And we're supposed to go down to Cloutier and put on our show for New Year's Eve. So we take the car at the Buick. This picture here, Pop drew this. And it looks a lot like the old Buick did. And we had a 2-wheel trailer with a sign on the top that said Katie's Orchestra. And we've piled our instruments in that and got all ready and went in the car. We went down to Cloutier and we put on our show, and then they had a dance. And Mr. Cole was along, and we played for the dance, and they danced and danced and danced, and the longer they danced, the more they drank, and so they always getting pretty looped. And there's even looped before we even put on our show, because Luella spun around in her dance in one place and fell down, and one guy went, "Oops!" And she got up and started going again, and he says, "Now you're going, Lena." And so from there they just kept getting to drink more all the time. And we finally got done. It was after midnight. And we packed up our instruments and started carrying them out to the car, quite a little ways from the building. And these drunk guys came along and was helping the girls carry their instruments. Well, when we got out to the car, Papa's out there putting the stuff in the trailer just so. He says, "Thanks, you guys, but we can handle this all right ourselves. We don't really need any help." So they turned around and took off, but Pop was sure watching them to be sure that they wasn't going to run off with the girls. Well, Leona was pretty attractive at that time. Looked good to him, I guess. But anyway, that was our one winter job that year before we got to go out the next summer again. Really, after we got back from off the road, the kids all went their own direction, and Royal met the Warner girl, Marie, and they got married, and it was in August the 7th of no, wait a minute, that's not right. Got married on February 19th of 1938. Royal was born in 1916. So I just read it wrong. And they were married in Independence, Iowa. Royal Marie had 7 children altogether. The first one was a girl. She's on the left there. And that's Rita. Rita Charlene Cady. And she was born February the 11th, 1939 in Lynn County, Iowa. And then in about a year they had a second one, and his name is Wayne Allen Cady, and he was born in December the 24th of 1940, and he was born in Walker in Lynn County. And then they had the third one, and that's on this side, the right side, and her name is Lynette Marie Cady, and she was born November the 28th, 1942, and she also was born in Walker, Iowa, in Lynn County. So that's 3 of the 7. The next 2. The one on the left is Mardine Lou Cady, and she was born June the 3rd, 1944, in Walker, Iowa, in Lynn County. And the one on the right is her younger brother Dennis, Gene Cady, and he was born in May the 29th of 1947. And he was born in Walker, Iowa, in Lynn County. Now this is Royal's youngest daughter, Shelby. The one just older than her, Leanne Theresa, she was born in September 11th of 1955, and she was born in Ashland County in Wisconsin, but we couldn't find any picture of her, so we can't show you what she looked like. But this is Shelby. She's the baby of the family, and we've known her a while. After they moved to Wisconsin, we lost track of the children. I used to get school pictures of them all the time until they moved up there. And these last 2, I only seen them a few times. So Shelby June Cady was born in June the 16th, 1958 in Ashland County in Wisconsin. So just 2 out of the 7 was born in Wisconsin. The rest was all born in Iowa. So that's Royal's family. Now this is Leona and Frank, And it wasn't long after we got back off the road that they got pretty sweet for each other, and they got married. And let's see, they got married November the 30th, 1938. That was the same year that Royal's first girl was born. So I got to see them when they come down to see the little baby. So Frank was born June the 3rd, June the 2nd, 1914, and Leona was born June the 4th, 1918. So they was both born in the same month. So they're real neat. This picture was taken after the kids was growing up. You see Lorna there in the middle. She's a baby, so she's grown up quite a ways. The one on the left side is Jan's wife, Jean, and Frank is in the middle, and the tall one is Sean, I think. And of course that's Leona in front of him. And that picture was taken after the boy got married, evidently. So, that, I don't know just when that would have been. It says here that Jan got married in 43. No, 46. No. They got married the 3rd month, the 13th day of 1965. So that was taken after that, around 1965. That's not too bad a picture. I hope we got their names right. Here is Frank and Leona's two oldest children. The one on the left is Linda Jean Schachman. She was born March the 19th, 1940. And she married Jerry Mackey. And they had 5 children. And the one on the right is Jan Schachman Curtis. Jan Curtis Schachman. He was born November 17th, 1943. And he married Mary Jean Swanson. And they got married in March 13th of 1965. And they had 4 children. They had a set of twin girls and 2 other girls. So they have quite a family. Now, this is the oldest girl, Linda, holding her baby sister, Lorna. And Lorna was born June the 17th of 1954. And Sean was born, Sean Paul was his name, and he was born in February 23rd, 1949. So there are some pretty good-looking kids there. And they, Sean has 4 children. Has 1 girl and 2 boys. So he's got his hands full. Luella and Dave and Orville and I all went up to the fair in a penance, and we all went into those little places where you just go in and sit down and pull a string, and it takes your picture about 5 times. So Dave finally got Luella to go in there and get that close, and so they got their picture taken. So after a while, we'll see the one of Orville and me. Luella and Dave kept seeing each other, and they did get married. They went to Canton, Missouri, and got married on August the 25th, 1941, just a year after when I was married. And but this was taken in 1971 when their son Gary got married and had a wedding dance. We were all up there, and I got a picture of them together. So that's a pretty nice picture of them. It's kind of late in the evening, so they look a little bit tired, but you didn't get a picture of them very often like that. Dave never hardly ever wanted to put on a suit. But anyway, we had a good time that night. Well, Luella and Dave had a little boy first, and his name was Larry David Rasmussen. He was born January the 6th, 1943. And he was sure a cute little guy. He's sitting on their doorstep now, down by their Grandma Rasmussen's, where they had a little house when they first got married. So he was really a cute little guy. Then they wasn't too long until they had their little girl. Her name was Juanita Elaine, and she was born in March 11th of 1944. So you see, their two first kids was the same age as our first two, because Zella was born in 44 too. So we had a foursome there that we really had quite a time with. And this is Juanita. She's not changed very much, and she married James Burns, and they farmed. So she's quite a gal too. And then it wasn't too long after that. I was in 44, and so in 48, the 9th month, which would be September, in September the 4th, 1948, they had another little boy and named him Gary Wayne Rasmussen. This is his graduation picture, same as Juanita's picture was of her graduation. Those two graduated from high school, for some of them didn't get through high school. But anyway, he had two boys, Stacy and Andrew, and they lived right by Luella. Always helped her so much. And this is their baby. This is Nancy Lou. Yeah, this is Nancy Lou. She was born just a year after Wendy was, so they was almost the same size. And she was always cowboy. She always liked to wear cowboy things, like boots and stuff like that, and she learned to play the guitar. She's real good on it. And this is one of her pictures that I always thought was really nice of her, because it looks so much like her, and she looks happy there. So I'm putting this in here because I was her Aunt Millie, and I helped her through lots of problems in her life, and I kind of enjoyed being her Aunt Millie.